booking. I see you already going to that comment section. I say, oh, Tony Khan's such a better booker than WWE. Well, answer me this, ladies and gentlemen. Who won Booker of the Year? That would be Papa H, the man who has been perpetually cooking for over a year now within WWE. It just makes sense. WWE tells stories. Phil, WWE are the listening promotion, okay? They listen to the fans and they deliver what the fans want. They don't just pick two random wrestlers and throw them out there. Like, anyone could do that. Both AEW and WWE, incredible rosters. You could just stick your finger on the roster page, not you, wrestle you, and that's, to be honest, what sometimes they do. But, you know, I genuinely think, it's the lowest of low bars that he had to clear, but Triple H has done a stellar job. I think the build to some of the big shows that WWE have put on in the last 12 to 18 months, apart from the weird bit where obviously it all went a bit wrong, I think it's been sensational. I have loved the build to WrestleMania 40, and credit to the booking, genuinely, right now. At time of recording, I will say there is no Final Testament match on the card, so that could change what I'm about to say, but there is not a single match on the WrestleMania 40 card that I am not looking forward to, and annoyingly, there's also not a match that I think I want to go to the bar during that match. There isn't any. I'm invested in every single story, and I'm the guy, Phil, who said, I think it was the right call to not put the title on Cody Rhodes at the end of WrestleMania 39. It took me a while to come around to that decision, but I worked out eventually as being the only professional wrestling journalist, of course, in the game. But if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't have got what we've got with the Killers in the Jungle, The Rock coming back, and this incredible build to WrestleMania 40. And I think, yeah, it's genuinely a credit to the booking. And, you know, it takes a lot, I think it's fair to say, for Wrestling Observer newsletter fans to say, it's not Tony Khan, it's Triple H. I did it a little bit to wind some people up, and I think, I've checked the comment section, I think it's already worked. But genuinely, I think, in terms of how it's improved over the last 12 months and how, I think it's fair to say AEW and Tony Khan kind of lost his way. I've got to say, right now, for me, WWE does booking better than AEW.
Where's Zedge? He's going to kill you.
Yeah, I'll wait until he's got home to record this.
I'll go with that one. It's promotion. It is a pro wrestling promotion more than it is a wrestling company. And that suits my taste, and evidently right now it suits the taste of many. It doesn't suit the taste of plenty, and good. I'm all for that as well, by the way. But yeah, WWE does for me, especially in its current incarnation and in the best versions of itself in history. I'm not sat here on a video on YouTube going to bat for 2002 to 2019 as some paragon of virtue of a great time for the business. But the version of WWE right now, the versions of WWE, you know, people watching at home will have their favourites. For me, gets promotion right. I think anticipation is just as important as the payoff of the match itself. For one thing, it lasts longer. You live with the anticipation of the moment, whether it be somebody winning a title, whether it be two people finally coming together and fighting. You live with that anticipation for weeks compared to the payoff of the moment, you know? Like, I just think WWE, when it's actually firing, when the cycles are actually turning over for WWE, does such a better job than anybody else of getting you in the mood for the thing you want to see. Now, there will be plenty of people that argue that when it gets to that point, they just do not have a good track record of delivering that thing you want to see.
Disagree.
Me too, brother. But what happens now especially is that because you've regained a trust in the process, I'm speaking of course in general terms, but because a lot of people have regained a trust in the process, using WrestleMania 39 as an example, you can quickly remember how good it felt last year, and then you are presented with new television to give you something else to get excited about, and suddenly here we are, and Cody's going to finish the story second time around. This video could date horribly and he could have lost again, and then can we trust the process? But the point I'm trying to get to here, and I'm maybe not articulating it too well because it is WrestleMania season, I'm just too excited, because that's the point of all of this,
yes,
right? Is that the anticipation is the stuff that gets you in there, it gets you down there, it makes you feel, it gets you in there, right? And it gets you there. No, it gets you in all the right places. There is an emotional response to things that you are seeing, and then it sticks with you, and you are left to ponder it. You are left to smash your Spotify playlist with all your favourite themes, or your WrestleMania themes, or anything like that. You go to those video packages that you watch again and again and again and again. You watch entrances, you watch promos, you watch beatdowns, you watch segments. You tend not to watch the matches, but the match is the kind of thing that you get at the end when you've already had all the investment in all the cool stuff. I'm trying to avoid using the word story because I think wrestling stories can be told in 100 different ways, and I think there's a lot of bad faith accounts on X that seem to think it has to be a promo battle or a duel or whatever. It's not as simple as that, but I do believe that WWE promotes better than anybody. They will tell you that the biggest event in the history of mankind is taking place on a Sunday, and then as soon as that wraps, be like, anyway, join us on Monday because you won't believe it, the biggest main event in the history of mankind's happening again. And then Raw wraps, you've seen that barcode come and say, wow, I can't believe I've just seen the biggest main event in the history. Well, I'm going to log into WWE.com and see whatever happened. SmackDown's coming, oh my God. That's what, I always said WWE was like cigarettes, and despite this voice, I've never smoked one in my life, but it hooked me young, and it hooked me for life, and it's pretty evil and bad for me. So yeah, WWE promotes like no promotion ever. Vince McMahon was never a good booker. He was, on his day, an excellent promoter. Triple H, I think, is a competent booker, but as part of WWE, forms to be an excellent promoter. Dave Meltzer, I believe, awarded that to Nick Khan in the Wrestling Observer End of Year Awards because WWE had such a phenomenal year. And that's it, in a nutshell. The company promotes better than anybody else.
Production. Obviously, I mean, come on. And this doesn't just lie in sort of the camera angles and the camera cuts. It goes into big shows, the way the shows look, the event production of everything. And I think the biggest example you can take of this is comparing a WrestleMania to an All In, which I think is a fair assessment of the two companies at the absolute pinnacle of their game in huge, gigantic stadiums. I mean, you could argue, obviously, All In was bigger than any of the WrestleManias ever in terms of attendance. So it should have felt like a huge, huge deal. It should have felt like a WrestleMania for AEW. And it just didn't. It felt big, obviously, and it looked big because it was in a gigantic stadium, but it didn't have that same feeling. It didn't have the grandiose, ridiculousness of a WrestleMania. It didn't have the over-the-top productions, the cameras on the big wires doing ridiculous shots down the entranceways. It just, the big ramps, everything. It just felt like a really downsized version of a WrestleMania, and it should have felt absolutely massive. So it's not only that, and I would have said this as well, still in the Kevin Dunn days, even with maybe not with the gazillion camera cuts, but I think the camera work production is better in WWE. I think their storytelling with the camera angles is better. If you look at AEW, if you analyze how they cut their shots around the matches, a lot of their action, their cuts take you out of the moves to the hard cam. They rely on the hard cam way too much to capture moves, which means you start in on this incredible move and then you pull out of this incredible move and it's taking you out of the action in terms of the psychiatry of camera shots and things. It's if you should be cutting into everything to bring you in. People should be diving into the camera so it feels like you're in the action. But the more they cut to a wide shot, just makes you take that one step out. And I think they rely on that far too much. And just the way the shows look and everything about it. AEW often don't get backstage angles in focus. And it's this is TV 101, guys. They put out of focus interviews and I'm you just can't. The WWE, I'm sorry, it just looks better, it feels better, it looks nicer. The production is way better.
As far as I'm aware, WWE have never shown the word no on screen.
Yes! Prime example.
So if you're going to put WWE and AEW side by side, you're probably going to look at AEW and think, well, that's a very rugged, edgy product right there, where a lot of rogue people are out. Rogue? I don't know. So if you're going to put WWE and AEW side by side as products right now, you're probably going to look at the Land of All Elite as a rugged, more edgier environment, whereas WWE is a bit more polished, a bit more presented, larger than life, all that kind of good stuff. And that brings me nicely to the one thing that I feel WWE are currently doing better than AEW, and that is their video packages, because they are so well presented and they do generally just feel quite larger than life. AEW are quite good at them, obviously. I think they tell some lovely stories through their video packages, but WWE's just feel like Hollywood movies at this point. They feel like Hollywood blockbuster trailers. Did you see The Rock, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Cody Rhodes package that they did coming into WrestleMania XL, like after the big old press conference thing? That felt monumental. That felt like as big a moment as watching an episode of Raw or SmackDown. It was like, have you seen the trailer? It's ridiculous, the video package. And WWE in general are just able to even take pretty dull looking pay-per-views and make them seem quite, I don't know, compelling just through the video packages. If you see the start of, let's look at Elimination Chamber, for example. If you look at that Elimination Chamber card, you were like, okay, looks like a decent show. But after you've seen the hype package at the start, you're like, well, I'm ready. Plug me into this thing. I'm excited. And then sometimes they bring in big celebrities to do like a voiceover for them. Hopefully we get Sly Stallone at WrestleMania 40 because it just makes sense. We're in Philadelphia, we got Rocky, it's all Rocky stuff. Just do that. That'd be awesome, that'd be epic. But they have done it in the past, and I feel like that's where WWE really do excel when it comes to building up what they've got coming. Even if what they've got coming on the horizon doesn't look that great, they can convince you that it is great through one of their monumental, exceptional video packages. Like over the years, look at the ones that we've had. The Daniel Bryan monster thing was iconic. Then you got the My Way or the Highway, Stone Cold and The Rock stuff. Like obviously WWE have been going a lot longer than AEW, so they've had time just to really hone this particular craft and become the absolute masters of it in the world of wrestling. AEW, you've got time. They probably are going to get better and better at it as the years go by, but currently WWE are just the top dogs when it comes to video packages.
WWE does a considerably better job of promoting a core group of guys, wrestlers, talents who you are unmistakably aware of the fact that they are the top stars, that if you buy a ticket for a live show, you will at the very least watch them in a verbal joust, if not a match. They appear on the TV show every single week. This sounds maybe a little bit boring, but quite frankly, it really works. These Gunther, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, you are going to get profile, focus, visibility. Not every single week is incredibly interesting, but if you buy a ticket for a WWE show, you know what you are going to get. With AEW, I might be a Jon Moxley guy, get a Chris Jericho match. I might be a Danielson guy and get a Will Ospreay match. I might be a Will Ospreay guy and get a Danielson match. I understand why they do this approach, in that the rotating cast does make the weekly TV that bit more interesting, but as a live concern, ultimately WWE does a much better job, and their guys are more over, and I'm not entirely convinced that that is not a coincidence.
I'm going to go with low-hanging fruit on this one. Someone has to do it, right? It's the women's division.
Yeah.
Booking women. Anything with women in it, basically. And as we record this now, you got to hope that maybe that's going to change finally, because Mercedes Moné coming in, the biggest female or just biggest pro wrestler in the world, the biggest, hottest free agent, as they say. But it's a shame that it takes that for AEW to maybe build a women's division, considering the great talent they've had come through before already, still there, all of this for years in that company, and they've just really never put any effort in. And weeks upon months upon years of people saying they could do something with this, and every week it's the same. It's
5 years at this point as well.
5 years. It's insane. Well, at least WWE make some amount of effort, cynical or not, to do something every now and then. You know, the women's pay-per-view, we just had Elimination Chamber Perth, main evented by women. I think there was more women's matches on the card than men's, or something close to equal, so, or which, you know, happens semi-regularly now, so that kind of stuff's nice. But AEW women's division, where is it? Where is it?
It's gone.
Where is it?
So I do want to point out, and I know we're doing the opposite video as well, but I'll say that on that one too. WWE can learn things from AEW, AEW can learn things from WWE. You're not a very good business person if you're not watching your competitors and going, oh wow, they did that well, we should steal it. My example of this is always Active Reload from Gears of War. One of the best gimmicks that any video game has ever come up with. Every single third-person shooter should have just borrowed that or outright stole it, because it was fun. When I play video games, I want to have fun. But at the moment, and this could just be a tenure thing, it could be a longevity thing, because you kind of understand the premises that you're working within. I do believe that WWE makes better stars than AEW. Like, there are some incredible wrestlers on All Elite Wrestling, and there are people that still come across as stars, but none of them feel as big as the over-top superstars, which is why they gave them the name, that the WWE has. I think Cody Rhodes is probably a great example of that. Cody was great in AEW. There's a revisionist history to this now, but if you go through his run, sure, there was a little bit of a disconnect with some of the fan base, but his matches, his character, some of the decisions he's made, The world title one probably wasn't the best, but it doesn't matter, like we all try these things. But then he goes to WWE, and with their, I don't know, the worldwide reach they have, their marketing bucket, their production, that was gibberish just came out of my mouth, whatever it will be, here we are a couple of years later, and he feels like a megastar. The Rock comes back, he feels like a megastar. Roman Reigns feels like a megastar. Even Drew McIntyre at the moment, as he kind of goes upwards on his heel turn, starts to have that aura about him. Same with Seth Rollins. We could do this all day. And again, that's not to say that you don't get that in AEW, but I suppose maybe because the focus is on match quality more than anything else, which I'm totally fine with. It's one of the reasons I love AEW. Maybe that takes something away from the presentation of a character. And that's not going to be true across the board. Like, I think MJF comes out and he carries himself a certain way. But I would imagine it comes down to a priority list, right? Tony Khan may look at a sheet of wrestlers and go, he can have a good match, he can have a good match, she can have a good match. Whereas maybe WWE goes, he has charisma, she has charisma, that person has star power, they have a personality, they can cut a promo, which is why they can lean more heavily into that stuff, because while obviously you need to be able to wrestle, we've seen it time and time again, if you can talk a certain way and you look a certain way and you carry yourself a certain way and you can project something on a television screen, it's almost like your in-ring ability. It doesn't not matter, but it becomes secondary to anything else, and you can come across like a super duper megastar. But I totally believe too that as AEW does continue to grow and develop and build, and I'll say they learn these things, but educate themselves on whatever they feel like they need to, they'll be able to do it as well, and that'll be great because the WWE will increase their drive to do it, and AEW will, and will continue to play this game of wrestling tennis that just helps everybody, which I'm a big fan of. But yeah, I totally feel like when I see Roman Reigns, I think, holy man, this is the biggest guy in the industry. And it could be because he's affiliated with WWE and they are number one. That could be something too. It could be something in my brain. But then you compare that to, you know, Samoa Joe at the moment. Then, I mean, it still is different, right? Samoa Joe I look at and I kind of feel like he could kill me. Whereas I look at Roman Reigns and I'm like, you could be a Hollywood actor tomorrow. And that's the differences. But I like the fact that we get those back and forth and we get those juxtapositions and those contrasts. I think that's what makes wrestling fun. And it makes WWE and AEW separately. But of course, you want your guys at the top and throughout the card, of course, but especially the tippity top dudes and girls to feel like they are larger than life and they have all this, you know, whatever it may be, bubbling up inside of them. And yeah, WWE has that down to a T. If they get the machine behind you, you're probably going to end up feeling that way, even if you don't have the tools to begin with, because you're going to be given space and time in order to find that. I guess John Cena, right? John Cena was a dude that just wore generic trunks, and now he's John Cena, Hollywood dude running out on an Oscar stage naked. And that all comes from WWE getting behind him and giving him the tools in order to succeed. So yeah, I'm sure that will transfer across to AEW soon. But right now, WWE does smash that, and they're pretty damn good at it.
Spectacle. I think above all else, WWE I often equate to the Marvel movies. And I think it's an apt comparison because they're big, they're explosive, they're bright. The cast of characters is really easy to understand. It's not like the most taxing thing in the world, but my goodness, is it incredible to look at when it's at its grandest thing. Like WrestleMania is like Infinity War. They do such an incredible job, WWE, of framing these as colossal events. You get the crazy shots outside the stadium, even in the build-up, you know, shots around the building, shots of people funneling in. Just shots that show you how vast and expansive this thing is, and you feel it all night. They're constantly going in the breaks to the crowd and the sheer size of these buildings. Even on rank and file pay-per-views, they're really, really good at it. But it goes beyond that as well. They make better use of pyro than AEW for sure, and their staging's a lot better as well. You know, I'm a sucker for the tunnels. I love me some tunnels on AEW and the little lift in the middle that Kazuchika Okada has now taken from Cody. But WWE staging, again, it's just on a completely different level. And yes, WWE books bigger venues. WWE is richer, so they can afford to do these things. WWE is more popular, which enables all of this. But at the same time, quite often AEW will run a big arena. Like I remember the first time they went to Arthur Ashe for Grand Slam. It just felt like a regular episode of Dynamite when in reality it's this 21,000 seater building, and it's kind of disappointing in a way. It's not the be all end all for me. Like I like indie wrestling. I'll watch a show that has 20 people in the crowd. I don't care. But when you're watching this big glossy mainstream production, it is really cool when it feels absolutely gigantic. And I don't think a wrestling company is ever going to touch WWE in this way.
Given how WWE has record profits, a $5 billion TV deal, is selling out arena after arena, stadium after stadium, brings in huge merchandise numbers, clearly there's a lot of things WWE does better than AEW. But to hone in on one particular niche element of the WWE product, the officiating is infinitely better than in AEW. In AEW, the bulk of the referees are idiots, or at least they're made to look like idiots. For some fans, they could not care whatsoever about rules being adhered to, and that's fine if that is for your taste, but for an old stickler like me, please, can we do better? Tag matches so often feel like tornado tag matches, with the amount of time that all 4, 6, 8, 12, however many wrestlers, they're all in the ring at the same time for long spells, all while the referee either doesn't count at all or just hovers on an extremely slow 1, 2, before restarting the count entirely. There are spells with AEW talent will spend literally minutes outside the ring or in the crowd, while the referee again just doesn't bother counting or counts ridiculously slowly. I am one of those sad nerds who will look at this and time it because I'm very, very sad like that. So like Moxley and Roosh will be outside for like 3 minutes and the referee's count will reach 3 seconds. And that's not to mention instances where referees allow matches to continue when one of the wrestlers involved is clearly injured or concussed. Hey Rick Knox, it's not even necessarily the referee's fault at times either, with some of the blame for this being on the talent. If 2 wrestlers decide to spend 2 minutes outside the ring, what happens if the ref enforces the rules and counts them out? That obviously then ruins the match and likely gets the referee in hot water backstage. And so many talents make the AEW referees look just absolutely redundant, whereas in WWE, there's simply a higher level of officiating. If someone is injured, a match is stopped. Sometimes frustratingly so, but talent's health always comes first. And yes, an out of the ring 10 count isn't a strict 10 seconds, but it's a lot more palatable for that 10 seconds to realistically be 20 seconds rather than 2 or 3 minutes. In AEW, Stephon Smith is usually good, as is Mike Posey, and Paul Turner can be decent, but the rest of the referees tend to just be there to be made to look like idiots. And one of the key elements of being a referee is to not draw attention to yourself, but if it becomes glaringly obvious that certain rules aren't being followed properly, that can't help but draw attention to the referee and also takes away from the enjoyment of the match, at least for this old man's taste.